everyone, welcome into SEC Country Live. I'm Hannah Chalker alongside former Alabama All-American and current host of Roll Tide Daily, Mike Johnson, and our host of the Mississippi State podcast, More Cowbell, Brandon Walker. Thanks everybody, first of all, for coming back for day 2 of our takeover. How you guys feeling?
Average, slightly above average.
Okay.
I mean, do we need to talk about what you just tried to bring up a minute ago?
No.
Like Brandon Walker walks in here and he's like, I'll try not to give you any more L's today. I didn't take no L yesterday.
I did. Right? He took an L yesterday.
No, I did not take an L yesterday.
He's used to being with Brandon Adams. Brandon lobs him softballs. I come in here wrecking shop, and you took a gigantic L yesterday.
We will put it in a vote in the comment section if I took an L.
No, they're all going to vote for you.
I think I'm 1-0. I think I'm 1-0.
They don't even know my name.
I'm 1-0 after
okay,
yesterday.
All right, 1-0. You let that continue in your head.
I agree, guys. You weigh in the comment section about who won the argument yesterday, and we'll see who wins one today.
Right. He's in the comment section. He's voting for himself.
Okay, we'll get in the comment section.
All right.
All right, here we go. Let's get to it. Topic number 1. 2 NFL experts compare Tua Tagavailoa and Drew Locke to NFL greats. This comes off the heels of the Elite 11 camp out in LA this past weekend, and we are going to start with Tua. So his name is Daniel Jeremiah. He is an NFL Network analyst, and he compares Tua to the Super Bowl winning quarterback Seattle Seahawks Russell Wilson. He tweeted, "Love watching Tua tonight. Bucky Brooks nailed it. He's a left-handed Russell Wilson. Quick feet, ball jumps out of his hands, and he has plus anticipation, velocity, and accuracy. Can't wait for you guys to hear our interview with him on the MTS pod. He was excellent." So I have some thoughts on this though. So Tua Tagavailoa, he gets hurt in spring practice. He re-aggravates his injury once again, finger injury, correct?
Right.
The wrist injury. But he seemed to look really good this past weekend out in LA. Mike, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it kind of blows my mind that it's always Russell Wilson, right? Like, why is it always
Russell Wilson?
When it's a mobile quarterback, it's not 6'5", it's Russell Wilson. We always talk about, like, why can't it be Carson Wentz? You know, I mean, like, why can't it be somebody else? I mean, I guess Russell Wilson's won the Super Bowl, but it's like we always fall back to Russell Wilson. Can it not be Dak Prescott? Can it not be?
Yeah, but Dak Prescott gets compared to who? Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I know. That's what, like, why does it always have to be Russell Wilson? I don't understand why we always fall down this kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, Russell Wilson, I think the mobility obviously is there when you talk about Tua. I like the anticipation kind of thing. I think that Tua is going to make a ton of plays with his legs when, you know, whether it be this year, obviously, or whenever he gets on the field at Alabama. But I mean, I think that if I had to construct what I would like Tua's kind of playbook to look like, it looks more like Drew Brees for me. Like, it looks more like a guy who's not, you know, 6'4", 6'5", sitting back in the pocket, delivering the ball to receivers, getting it out on time, you know, anticipation being a big thing, like he said, but I don't want Tua to have to be like Russell Wilson running on the backfield. I want him to be anticipatory with his throws at all times and getting the ball out of his hands in the backfield.
I love what somebody in the comment section just said. But first of all, let me say this to you, Mike. You're doing a great job playing defense and not taking an L today because you said something I agree with right off the bat. I don't think it's a Russell Wilson type playbook because that's somebody who sits up there and improvises, and I don't see that working in the Alabama offense. He's got enough talent around him. He's got enough offensive line talent. He doesn't have to improvise. He can just make the plays, make the Drew Brees throws. I like the Drew Brees comparison. Somebody compared him to Steve Young. Oh, Steve Young, not the fastest guy in the world, but you rarely find a more mobile quarterback. Right. Steve Young did what he did with what he had. And Tua is not the most mobile quarterback, but I think he's smart enough and he's going to be well coached enough to make plays with his feet when it counts by using his head. Not like Jalen Hurts, who's just otherworldly running. I think Tua will make plays like that, but these comparisons to Russell Wilson, they might be pretty spot on. Maybe Tua doesn't have to be as improvisational as Russell Wilson, but as far as the arm and as far as the body type, it's pretty close.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. Listen, if Tua comes out and plays like Russell Wilson, I'm not going to argue. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to be like, well, you know, darn. Like, he played like Russell Wilson today. I think I'm going to have an issue with that. But I just think in terms of the way that offense is constructed, Russell Wilson almost never gets the ball out on time, it feels like. When you watch him play for the Seahawks, it's, hey, first read, second read. Oh, offense line breakdown. I'm going to roll out. I'm going to reverse reverse path and go back the other way. Then I'm going to find somebody down the field. I don't think that's going to be Tua in this system. I think it was at times against Georgia, but I think inside of the system, Nick Saban will be bald by the end of the year if Tua has to play in a system like that.
That would be hilarious if he were bald by the end of the year. I am rooting for that. But I will say this, Russell Wilson, comparatively, everything's relative, right? Tua is going to have more talent around him than Russell Wilson has. Now, obviously, Russell's in the NFL, so he has more natural talent. But compared to the league itself, Alabama will have more talent than their opponents. They'll have better receivers than Russell Wilson has on the NFL level. They'll have better running backs than he's had since Marshawn Lynch retired. Tua won't have to be Russell Wilson. That's the best part of this, but he has that skill set, I think, is the grand scheme of things here.
Yeah, there's somebody in the comment section, I'm trying to find it now, but I lost it. Somebody's saying, hey, Drew Brees, you're kind of reaching with that one.
You just said the Drew Brees type offense.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
He was going to be
I'm not
Drew
saying
Brees.
he's going to be Drew Brees. I'm not saying that he is Drew Brees, that he's that good, that he's going to pass for 5,000 yards. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying if I had to construct the offense based around what I think Tua should be, what the wide receiver core should be, what the offensive line should be, I would want it to look more like the New Orleans Saints offense than I would Russell Wilson having to improvise in the backfield and run around left and right and find receivers down the field 12 seconds in the play. I don't think that's what Tua will look like in the end.
No, I don't think so either.
No.
Josh Rubin in the comment section says Talia is about to take over. Of course, that's his brother, Tua Tagavailoa's brother. Also an Elite 11 QB, and he was invited out to the opening finals, which is later this month in Frisco, Texas. Guys, Tua, Talia, oh gosh. What does this say about Jalen Hurts' status on the team? And Mike, I want to get your thoughts too on Talia. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, no, I think that listen, Talia's getting the Russell Wilson comparison too. I mean, he's a little bit, I think he's like 2 inches shorter than Tua is, and he's right-handed quarterback, so he's going to look more like that. I'm not sure it has anything to do with Jalen. I really I don't know that Talia. I think if anything, it kind of holds your feet to the fire in terms of Tua, possibly not transferring at some time. But listen, Tua Tagavailoa is going to be good. I've heard a bunch of people that have seen him play in high school that he's very good. Paul Tyson, who is also Bear Bryant's great-grandson, was also out the Elite 11 camp. He's going to be a good quarterback as well. That's for another time. I think right now Jalen is good enough to where he doesn't have to worry about a kid that's 18 years old and hasn't played his senior year in high school. That's for another day. I think that Talia will come of his own, but I think we give him some time, allow Tua's career to finish, allow Jalen's career to finish, and then we can talk about Talia.
Certainly, Jalen Hurts doesn't have to worry about that, but I wonder why we have to worry about Jalen Hurts worrying about Tua, because in my opinion, Jalen Hurts isn't going to be on Alabama's team this year. He's not going to be. He's going to transfer. He's going to go somewhere else. I know we're already in June, but Tua's a better quarterback than he is. Tua's a much better quarterback than he is. And all Jalen Hurts proved last year was how bad you could be at quarterback and still go to the national championship game at Alabama. So as far as the question, will it affect Jalen Hurts? I'm not sure why fans really need to worry about that question.
Yeah, it's tough, too, because I know that coming from not being an Alabama fan, a lot of people look at it and say, boy, this is cut and dry. But I think that a lot of Alabama fans in general have developed a relationship with Jalen Hurts. He's brought them back. You've seen it a couple of times yourself. He brings them back in games. He does a ton of things. He's led this team to back-to-back national title games. Obviously didn't play well in either one of those national title games, but he's gotten them there. And so it's not easy enough to say, boy, Jalen's not going to be there. You can't just throw him away. The guy's 26-2 as a starting quarterback. He's done so many good things for Alabama. It's not as easy as just saying, oh, let's just move on past this guy.
I don't think you're throwing him away. I think you're replacing him with a better quarterback. I think Tua, these guys, these comparisons to NFL great, these are not bad comparisons. They're right. Tua is very, very good. We only saw it for a half, but Tua is very good. He's not getting replaced by a tomato can. He's getting replaced by an elite quarterback. That's what Tua is. Jalen Hurts is not an elite quarterback. Sometimes it's just that simple.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but I agree with you, and I think that's why we've gone down this argument so many times: Jalen versus Tua, Jalen versus Tua. To me, it would be the biggest upset I've seen in quite some time if Jalen wins this quarterback battle, because I think Tua is such a heavy favorite with what his ceiling could possibly be at Alabama, with all the things around him. It'd be hard for me to make the argument that Jalen should be taking the starting snaps against Louisville.
Certainly it makes sense for Nick Saban to do everything to keep Jalen Hurts there for quarterback depth and for everything else. And maybe coming out against Louisville, you're going to beat Louisville by 30 no matter who the quarterback is. So maybe both guys play and both guys play very well, and we continue this conversation well into the fall and well into even the winter. But I just look at it on the surface. Tua is a legit NFL quarterback in the future. Jalen Hurts is not. You got to go with the NFL guy.
It's hard to argue that one.
All right, let's talk about Missouri QB Drew Locke, arguably one of the best quarterbacks in college football this upcoming year. He could have gone into the 2018 draft, decided to stay for his senior year, and now he could be a top draft pick in 2019. An NFL Network analyst weighs in on him, compares him to former #1 pick UGA QB Matt Stafford. He says in terms of the positive on Drew Locke, he's quick to influence safeties with his eyes and push them away from where he wants to go. He rarely allows his eyes to linger, which prevents early jumps from DBs, and he's very reminiscent of Matthew Stafford on many fronts. And guys, I like this comparison. Locke is known for his fearless arm strength. What do you think about comparing him to Stafford?
Well, they didn't compare him to Russell Wilson, first of all. So you got away from that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've ever heard a college quarterback compared to Matthew Stafford. I mean, Matthew Stafford's had a decent little NFL career, but I've never heard somebody say
Decent little NFL.
He's been okay. He's been okay.
Is he making $27 million?
Oh, money-wise, he's great. But I mean, he goes to the playoffs every now and then. He's had a pretty good little NFL career. But you know, there's the Breezes, there's the Matt Ryans, there's the other guys that are at the top level of quarterback. And I don't see Matt Stafford there, but I love Drew Locke. I think Drew Locke is the best quarterback in the SEC this year. The only question I have about Drew Locke is Derek Dooley. I mean, they've changed out their offensive coordinator situation in Missouri. It's going to be tough to replicate what he's done before, but I feel like Drew Locke and Missouri are the most under-talked-about player and team in the entire SEC this year.
Yeah, to me, the Matthew Stafford thing is a little bit. I don't know that Drew Locke has the arm talent Matthew Stafford
has. That's a gigantic arm.
Matthew Stafford can throw the ball from one end zone to the other. I mean, standing flat-footed. So I don't want to make that comparison. I know that you get it, that he's a gunslinger. He's one of those guys that can fly around, not afraid to try to fit it in tight windows. I look more like a Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers kind of guy when I talk about Drew Locke. I think Matthew Stafford does well in some of the systems he's been put in. He's had pretty good wide receivers over the course of his career. But I would hope to think that Drew Locke maybe has his eyes a little bit higher in terms of what he did. Here's what I will say about Drew Locke, though, and I think you hit the nail on the head talking about Derek Dooley. He's not going #1 in the draft. I mean, Matthew Stafford was a #1 draft pick for a reason, because he had a ton of upside. The ceiling was there. The arm talent was there. You know, mentally he had it there. I think when you look at Derek Dooley, when you look at Barry Odom, when you look at some of the games they're going to have this year, now Missouri's schedule is not daunting to say the least in terms of what they're going to face, but it's tough for me to look at Missouri and think that season ends up being great. And for that reason, I don't know how you put them at the top end of the draft.
Well, let me counter that. Two things. I've always got two things. A, Baker Mayfield just went #1. And Drew Locke has more upside than Baker Mayfield as a passing quarterback in the NFL. He's got a better arm. He's got that face.
No,
you think Baker Mayfield has a higher ceiling than Drew Locke? Drew Locke's 6'4". He's 200 pounds. He throws the ball all over the field. In the NFL game, I think Drew Locke has a higher ceiling than Baker Mayfield.
I was 6'4", 200 pounds when I was a freshman in high school. All right, I wasn't going to be in the NFL throwing. Baker Mayfield was what, 41 touchdowns to like 4 interceptions last year, or something crazy like that. It's accuracy. He doesn't get the gunslinger mentality because he doesn't throw into cover, double coverage. He's not forced to. He wasn't forced to at Oklahoma. I think that the accuracy sways way into Baker Mayfield's favor. I think he's more athletic than Drew Locke is. Now, is his arm a cannon like maybe Drew Locke's is or will be? I don't think so, but I think Baker Mayfield's got more upside.
I don't think the accuracy is as far in Mayfield's favor as you claim it is. I don't have the stats in front of me. Drew Locke, a very accurate quarterback, a very good quarterback. Well, I want to go back to something you said about Missouri, though. You don't think the season's going to be good enough for him to kind of get up there high in the draft? The SEC East is so ripe for the picking, and we don't talk about Missouri at all. They closed really, really strong last year. They started terribly. They closed strong. All you got to do is be better than a rebuilding Florida, be better than Kentucky, be better than Tennessee, and be better than Vanderbilt, and you're third in the East.
Right.
That's 8 or 9 wins right there. So I think he can go to 8, 9, maybe even 10 wins. That might be too high, but he can go to 8 or 9 wins, have a very good season, lead the SEC, be the all-SEC quarterback, and then be positioned to be the #1 pick in the draft.
No, I agree with you when it comes to the SEC East. We have this argument all the time, and BA is obviously going to be on the side of the SEC East, and it's going to, it's back and forth.
Well, that's just a wrong opinion.
I mean, it is, because when you look at the SEC West last year, it's like I've said a million times, I think the SEC West was 12-2 against the East last year, and it is ripe for the picking in a lot of different ways. But listen, their crossover game is going to be at Alabama in Tuscaloosa. That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah,
they still have to play Georgia. But they don't have a non-con schedule that's tough. They do play Purdue. I think they're in week 3 or some point early in the season, so that's going to be not an easy game. But listen, you can talk about the winning streak all you want to. They didn't play anybody down the stretch last year.
But they're not going to play anybody this year. They're still in the East.
To me, it's kind of a loaded statistic, though. It's empty in my mind. I think you can talk about it. They won some, there's 6 games in a row. Barry Odom get the turnaround. I didn't see that as being that great of a thing. And the best asset they had last year, Josh Heupel, now resides in Orlando, Florida.
That is a good point. Josh Heupel gone, Derek Dooley there. I don't know about Derek Dooley. But you're talking about it's an empty stat. Well, it's the same teams they'll have to go through this year. It's the exact same teams. Florida is not going to be all that good. South Carolina is going to be pretty good. Georgia's going to be really good. But the rest of the teams in the East are all beatable. Missouri can make noise in this SEC, and nobody talks about them.
Yeah.
Bo Molinari in the comment section says close strong in that loss to Texas.
Well, the reason they got to the game against Texas is they were 1-6 and they ended up winning their last 5 games. Yes, they closed strong.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick Drew Locke or Tua, you're going Drew.
I'm going Drew Locke. For this year?
For this year.
For this year, I'm going Drew Locke. For the future, maybe Tua. And there goes a face again.
I'm picking off the set, man. I'm putting everything down.
You're picking Tua.
It's tough.
I didn't expect you to pick Tua. What with that big Alabama logo on your chest?
Yeah, I mean, I would have said that. I would have said that last year. I would probably. I don't know if I'd pick Jalen Hurts over Drew Locke at this point.
You would have picked last year.
I don't think Drew Locke. I don't think he's in the top 3 quarterbacks in the SEC right now.
Who are the top 3 quarterbacks in the SEC?
I would rather have Jared Stidham. I'd probably rather have Jake Fromm, and I'd definitely rather have Tua.
What about Nick Fitzgerald?
Well, we'll get to that later. I can't fathom a world where I'd rather have Jake Fromm than Drew Locke.
It's tough. No, I'll give you that. Now, I'm not BA sitting over in this chair, so I'm not going to sugarcoat Jake Fromm. He wasn't a world beater last year, but in terms of playing within the offense, in terms of completion percentage, all those different things, when you look at it, it stacks up in Jake Fromm's favor. I mean,
playing within the offense, Drew Locke is the offense.
I know. That's my point. That's my point. I don't need a guy to be the offense, but play on time, play within the system, do whatever you need to do. But gunslinger is not what I would want leading my offense.
He also has years
more experience. If we're going to do that, I'd rather have Jared Stidham.
Yeah, Drew Locke's been there a while. He's been there. I feel like you're shortchanging Drew Locke and in turn shortchanging Missouri. I don't think, those 3 are fine. I would definitely take Stidham in the top 3. I wouldn't take Fromm anywhere near the top 3.
And I didn't even mention like Jake Bentley, Nick Fitzgerald, Jordan Thompson.
I wouldn't put Fitzgerald in there. I would put Locke, probably Tua, and probably Stidham. That's my top 3.
I just feel like we get caught in this conversation when we talk about Drew Locke and we talk about the upside and the gunslinger mentality and the arm talent. And we don't ever talk about what his offensive output is other than to say that he threw for 5,000 yards because he throws it every play.
If Drew Locke is the quarterback of the Georgia Bulldogs last year, they beat Alabama by 2 touchdowns. Period.
Tyler Jenkins says Jake Fromm over Drew Locke. We're also being told this is the Missouri-Alabama show today, which it is not.
It is this has Mississippi State on it. I paid $11 for this tie.
I've come to know, and I love everybody in this comment section, but there's like half of them. It's like, why aren't you talking about the small guys? And then when you do talk about the small guys, we get why are we talking about teams that combined for 10 wins last year? That kind of thing going on. So it's a double-edged sword there.
All right, we have a lot more teams coming up. We're going to see how it all plays out. Missouri, who went 7-3, like you said, last season, kicks off their season against UT Martin September 1st. Alabama plays Louisville also on September 1st in Orlando. That brings us to topic number 2. Times have been released for the first 3 weeks of the college football season, and we're going to start with week number 1 and our top SEC matchups for week 1. We all created this list, so we have Washington versus Auburn, LSU versus Miami, Ole Miss versus Texas Tech, and Tennessee versus West Virginia. You can see the times on your screen, as well as where they are being broadcasted. Some of these are still TBD on where they will be aired. For those of you listening on the podcast, though, Washington versus Auburn, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. LSU Miami, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Ole Miss Texas Tech, 12 o'clock on ESPN. And Tennessee versus West Virginia, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, TBD. Which matchup, Mike, we'll start with you, is most crucial for week 1?
Crucial wise, I don't think there's even an argument here. It's Auburn and Washington. These are 2 teams that are going to have their sights set on the playoffs. These are 2 teams that are going to be in the top 10 to start the year. When you talk about what Washington could possibly be, because we talk about Mississippi State all the time, the returning starters come back from Mississippi State. Washington is the Pac-12 version of that, and they're probably the more talented version of that. And I think that when you look at Washington and I don't know what rank, probably top 5 going into this offseason. I think that Auburn really needs to respond, and they need to answer the questions about playing in the city of Atlanta or playing away from Jordan-Hare Stadium headed in the season. And they get the opportunity there in week 1. That's going to be week 1. It's going to be Gus Malzahn answering these questions against a top 5 team away from Jordan-Hare Stadium. So if we're talking about crucial games, I don't even think that any of the other ones are even close. I know LSU Miami is going to be a big game. I know West Virginia against Tennessee. A lot of people say it's a must-win for Tennessee in a lot of different situations. I don't think you go as far to look past Auburn and Washington there in week 1. I think it's a crucial game for Gus Malzahn.
Anybody calling West Virginia a must-win game for Tennessee is just setting themselves up for disappointment. Tennessee ain't winning that game. I will agree with you. You're right. The number 1 game there it's Auburn and Washington, because if you want to be a national title contender and you play in the SEC, you can't lose. Like last year they lost to Clemson. They put themselves in a bad spot. They were fighting from behind all year. Now they eventually got back by beating Georgia and Alabama, but you're not going to do that every year. So I think that's very important, Auburn and Washington. But boy, LSU Miami might be more interesting for me because LSU has the potential to be pretty good because of the talent. and they have potential to be a train wreck because they have a terrible head coach and their quarterback situation we don't really know about. So
shots fired.
It is. I mean, he's a terrible head coach. Well, I'm not going to be on here and lie about it. So they got LSU has massive train wreck potential. Miami has Mark Richt in the second year building whatever, or his third year building whatever he's going to build down there at Miami. So it's very interesting to me that game to see. You know, Miami might win that game by 3. They might lose that game by 3. They might lose by 30. They might win by 30. I can see that many different outcomes of that game. But the most important, obviously, Auburn and Washington.
Yeah, no, I think that you bring up two different topics too, because I wanted to talk about how crucial Auburn and Washington is when you talk about national title picture, when you talk about SEC championship picture. When you talk about the SEC just getting to where it needs to go in terms of staying in that playoff hunt, I mean, I think getting a win early in the season against the Pac-12's best team is crucial. But I think when you talk about it being interesting, like you brought up, when you talk about LSU, when you talk about Miami, when you talk about what that game could mean for LSU and Ed Orgeron's tenure, I mean, really, let's talk about next football season and the hot seat that Ed Orgeron could be sitting on if things don't go his way. I mean, we're going to talk about over-unders. LSU sitting there right at 7 as far as the over-under goes. That Miami game's one they need to come away with. I think it's going to be tougher than a lot of people realize.
I feel like if he loses that game, particularly if he loses in decisive fashion, he's immediately on the hot seat.
Yeah, no, I agree with
if
you.
he's not there now, which I don't think he's quite there now, it's just going to take a little bit to happen in the season for that to happen. If he loses to Miami, especially decisively, Ed Orgeron is right on the hot seat. I'll tell you, Ole Miss Texas Tech is interesting to me. If you like defense, don't watch that game. That could be a 68-61 game, one of those. They're both electric offenses, not very good defenses. We don't even have Alabama and Louisville in that graphic. I guess because we assume Alabama's going to win that game by 40 points,
it's
or at least
a 29-point spread. Yeah,
it is. And Louisville picked a very bad year to put Alabama on the schedule first.
Well, yeah, Lamar Jackson's gone. Here's what I will say, though. Here's why this game could get interesting in terms of what Alabama's doing. It's not on the graphic, but Bob Petrino and the passing offense against Alabama with replacing their top 6 DBs from last year's football team, I think it's going to be tough. Now, I think the front 7 absolutely gets after the quarterback for Louisville, and I don't think it comes to the DBs, but I think that's something to keep your eye on.
Can I read a comment?
Sure.
Harry Williams, big fan of mine, says, I would shoot myself if I was a Mississippi State fan and had to read this clown's columns.
I knew this was coming.
I retract my previous statement. BW is worse than BA. I
told you stirred the pot, man, with that Orgeron comment.
I try so hard. All right.
I knew it was coming. Oh,
that was my comment. I'm done.
Should we do week 2?
Please.
Week 2 for SEC matchups, our marquee matchups. Kentucky at Florida, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, SEC Network. Mississippi State at Kansas State, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. UGA at South Carolina. This is a CBS game, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Clemson at Texas A&M, 7 o'clock ESPN. Marquee matchups for this week, guys. I think it has to be UGA at South Carolina.
Did you just get tired of using the at symbol by the time you got to Clemson and Texas A&M?
I didn't make this graphic.
You did make this graphic.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What was the question?
I don't know Photoshop.
Are we talking about the most meaningful game, or are we talking about the best game to win?
The most meaningful game
is
Georgia, South Carolina.
Is Georgia, South Carolina.
Okay,
and
but
it's
what
not
about
even
the best
close.
one to watch?
The best one to watch is going to be Clemson and Texas A&M to me, because I really, and I know that people are going to disagree with, but I think Texas A&M has a legitimate shot to be able to knock Clemson off in that game. To catch them early in the season, to catch them right there in week 2, to be able to do some things on the defensive line, the offensive line.
Do you have stock in Texas A&M somewhere?
I don't have stock in Texas A&M.
Are you
I'm
a
just
Jimbo
telling you,
buddies?
Jimbo Fisher knows Clemson's program. He knows. I mean, it's not like they're just coming to town. Jimbo Fisher knows how to beat that program.
Clemson is a college football playoff contender.
Clemson lost to Syracuse last year.
Clemson
So,
is
I mean,
a
it can
national
happen.
title.
Let's not act crazy.
It could happen. It's not going to happen. Georgia, South Carolina, far and away, not only the most important game, but the most interesting. I think Jake Fromm, and people don't really talk about this very much, but Georgia's replacing a whole lot on that defense. If South Carolina's ever going to beat Georgia, they got them in week 2. South Carolina's got a great chance to win this game. I don't know that they will, but they got a great chance. It's the first big marquee SEC game of the entire season. We'll all be watching. To me, that's the star of that week. No questions asked. If Texas A&M goes out there and beats Clemson, yeah, that's an attention grabber. That's a big deal. I just can't see it happening.
Yeah. No. I think when we talk about meaningful games, though, going back to South Carolina and Georgia, I think if South Carolina wants to make a fool of me and anybody else that's questioning what's going on right there with Jake Bentley and Brian McClendon and this new offense and everything going on, then go out and prove it in that game. I'm not even saying beat Georgia. I'm saying keep the game close. I'm not saying come up with this big upset. I'm just saying it's ripe for the picking. They're in week 2. If you really want to be on the national stage and consider yourself a contender in the SEC East, you got to at least keep that game close. You got to keep it within 14 points, because if it gets 21 and 28, We're just going down the same path again with South Carolina.
I think if you're South Carolina, if you want to be a national contender, if you want this to be a special season, you pretty much have to beat Georgia. You can't not beat Georgia. The rest of your schedule is too tough. I know you got A&M coming in at some point. You have other tough games in the SEC. You also have Clemson on the back end of your schedule. You can't afford a tough loss in week 2. If you lose to Georgia and you're not ahead of the game, then you're behind the game. Yeah. And I think South Carolina, it might not be a must-win, but it's pretty close if you want to be special.
And the final week that times have been released is week number 3, and I want to get you all's opinions on times and which time you like the best. But again, let's go through the week 3 matchups, our top matchups. LSU at Auburn, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, CBS. Alabama at Ole Miss, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. Missouri at Purdue at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the Big Ten Network. And Vandy at Notre Dame, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I am going with Auburn again on this one, guys. I'm saying LSU at Auburn for best watch.
Boy, the quality of these games really drops off from week 2 to week 3. Week 1, very interesting. Week 2, incredibly interesting. And week 3, I might take a nap that day. That might be a good day to watch your car.
I went to Ole Miss, and I'm not looking forward to that game.
No, and you shouldn't be. You shouldn't look forward to anything involving Ole Miss. But, LSU, Auburn, I think Auburn's going to smack LSU around this year. LSU embarrassed Auburn last year. LSU won a game they shouldn't have won. Auburn should not have let that game get away from them, but they did. Auburn is going to smack LSU when they come to Auburn this year. At least that's my opinion.
I think it's crazy, too, that we look back, because I feel the same way. When you look back at that game, that Auburn-LSU games last year, and you say LSU won a game they shouldn't have. That still blows my mind that we talk about that, a game in Baton Rouge that they shouldn't have won, because I agree with you, they shouldn't have won that game. Yeah. Gus Malzahn...
He didn't adjust.
He didn't adjust.
They ran a safety up in the box, and he never adjusted.
And LSU was able to come away with that game. I think that this is another one when we're talking about Ed Orgeron's tenure. That what we're going to talk about moving forward, when you talk about the talent level, when you talk about recruiting, if we're going to talk about Ed Orgeron's tenure, they've got to find a way to get that W against Auburn. And Auburn, to me, is a team that's so polarizing because we've talked about what they are, what they need to be away from Jordan-Hare Stadium there in week 1 against Washington. This game's at home for them. And I think this is one that Gus Malzahn should have in the bucket. LSU is going to come in really hungry to get another win against them.
Auburn has a really tough early schedule. Washington is tough. LSU in week 3 is tough. We're going to know about Auburn very, very, very quickly. But I don't know that LSU is the team to test them because of the quarterback situation, the coaching situation. It's a coaching mismatch. I think Auburn's going to destroy LSU and really set in motion a chain of events that's going to have us questioning Ed Orgeron all season.
My goal this week was to not get slaughtered in the comment section. I did not like Ed Orgeron coaching at Ole Miss. I don't really like him at LSU. So I pick the Auburn-LSU game that week because I think it's a proving ground for Ed Orgeron.
I just think that, to me, the book is not written on Ed Orgeron at LSU.
How is it?
I agree.
I think that there's still a window for him to succeed there. I think that he's done the right thing and backed off. I mean, it's not like he's calling plays. It's not like he's calling. I mean, he's backed off of those duties. I think that there is still a window that he can make this situation work. Do I love the Steve Ensminger hire? Probably not. I think that he can be good. I don't know if he will be good. There's just too many questions right now for me to stamp it and say, boy, LSU is a team moving in the right direction. I think recruiting-wise, they have to finish really strong. There's too much talent in the state of Louisiana for them not to. But I think he can begin to check those things off as we go. Now, I think it's going to be an uphill battle. You know, when you're talking about Miami and when you're talking about Auburn early on in the year, when you're talking about Alabama at the end of the year, Georgia's also coming down to Baton Rouge. It's going to be an uphill climb. But I think that the window is there for him to knock off some of his opponents with the talent level they have at LSU, for him to get a couple of big wins. Very much like Gus Malzahn did last year, in my opinion.
Certainly the opportunity is there. The ability is not. The ability, Ed Orgeron's not out coaching Mark Richt or Gus Malzahn. I just don't think he's going on the road and beating Auburn. I just think this is going to be a long, slow march to him not being the coach at LSU anymore starting this year.
But you got to keep in mind, too, now, Joe Leva down there at LSU, if he's going to make that decision, he's getting fired, too.
Yeah.
He's getting fired, too. As soon as he makes the decision, Ed Orgeron's fired, he's gone as well.
His last hire was Ed Orgeron. He probably should be fired.
Well.
Last thing on this. Do you and LSU fans, I want to hear from you, are LSU fans completely bought into Ed Orgeron?
No. I hope not.
From the guys I'm checking on over here in YouTube comment section, my guy Tyler Mann, Cliff Nelson's kind of maybe iffy about it, Esteban Estevez. I think for the most part they have been bought in on Ed Orgeron because I think for the most part, most LSU fans I talk to are really thinking this Steve Ensminger thing could be a big deal. Thinking that Steve Ensminger could end up being a great hire. Maybe he will. He was the interim offensive coordinator a couple of years ago when Les Miles got fired. But I don't think Ed Orgeron was hired with the thought that Steve Ensminger was going to be your offensive coordinator in the end. And for that reason, there's still too many questions as far as the LSU program goes, for me to say that Ed Orgeron is going to be there for 3 or 4 years down the road.
Here's my thing about LSU, and people wonder, do you hate LSU? No, I don't hate LSU. LSU is a top 10 program in this country. They are one of the best programs in this conference. I believe LSU should be every single year the team slugging it out with Alabama for the SEC and national championship. That's how much respect I have for LSU. They own that state, which is talent rich. They're right by Texas. They are a tremendous program. They're my absolute favorite road trip in the entire SEC. All of that going for them. All of that going for them, and they decided to hire Ed Orgeron to be in charge of that. That's like me buying a $200,000 sports car and putting a 4-year-old in charge of driving it. You just don't do it. I just don't understand. I'll never understand how they hired that guy to be their head coach when they have so much to offer.
Yeah, Cliff Nelson weighing in the YouTube comment section. We are bought in on the CEO factor of Orgeron. He says just recruit and let the coordinators coach. Shannon Burgess says I think it's going to be good chemistry. I just feel that way. And we got a ton of people over in the Facebook comment section saying that job is too big for Orgeron. Dave Aranda will be the next man up.
The Ole Miss job was too big for him, and that job is tiny.
That was ugly.
Yes.
Okay. Big proving ground for LSU this season. Okay, the whole moral of this topic was to get also your opinions on the times. So quickly, Mike, we'll start with you. What times do players prefer to play?
Yeah, it was tough, and it almost depended on what game it was and what stadium you're at. Obviously, you want to play at nighttime in Death Valley and do the whole Baton Rouge thing. I always thought the Iron Bowl was more fun at night. But when it was a home game for us, when we were in Bryant-Denny Stadium, the 2:30 Central Time game was always the best one. You got to sleep in a little bit because the one I hated was the 11 Central Time or 11:30 or whatever it is. It was the Jefferson Pilot game back when I was playing. I don't even know what it's called, CSS or whatever. I hated those games. You wake up 4 hours before game time, so it's a 6 a.m. breakfast call. You don't get enough sleep. You have to do all these things all this early. It's nice to have the rest of the day, but the 2:30 Central Time game for me, you get to sleep in a little bit. You get to see your parents after the game. You get to hang out for a little bit. That game in the middle of the day was always my favorite at home.
You're not going to ask me, are you? I never played. I didn't get fat till I was old.
Are you saying
no?
No. That's not what I'm. Okay.
First of all, you did claim to be an elite athlete because you guys were sitting here up front. You said that you were just like Mike.
What game do you prefer to go to, though?
Okay, that was my question for you.
I prefer night games to go to.
Okay.
You get to fraternize all day. You get to enjoy whatever you want to enjoy. 6 o'clock start for me is perfect. Now, as a writer, which I came from, 2:30 is the best. And frankly, if I'm watching on TV, 2:30 is the best too. But to me, 6 p.m. is the best one to go to, like a Tiger Stadium in Alabama. That's the one I like the most.
All right, me too. I'm on the same page. Okay, you mentioned odds earlier. We are going to go to the SEC's 2018 over-unders, and this comes from Bill Bender of Sporting News. We'll take a look at this graphic right here. At the top, of course, Alabama 11, Georgia 10.5, over for South Carolina 7, under Auburn 9, risky business LSU at 7. Guys, Bill Bender thinks there's a reasonable chance both Alabama and Georgia could get to the SEC championship game in Atlanta with undefeated records. Let's start with that over-under. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I'll take it first. So I think Alabama, anytime. Have they won 11 games in a regular season for what, the last 6 or 7, 8, 9 years? They haven't lost more than one game in a season since I can remember. 11 is exactly where you should start it. So 11 is exactly where Alabama should be, and that makes a lot of sense because you can slip up and lose one game. Georgia 10.5, boy, that's very tempting. I don't see more than one team beating Georgia. I can see them tripping up once, maybe against South Carolina, maybe against LSU. I don't know. Those numbers are about right. South Carolina seems low at 7. Bill Bender wants them over. I'm going ahead of you, aren't I? Well, you wanted to talk about Alabama and Georgia. Mike, Alabama and Georgia 11 and 10.5. What do you think?
I'm with you on the Alabama thing. I think to me, that's easy money. I mean, I think it's a push at worst.
Yeah.
I think when you look at the schedule and the way things line up for them, it's not a difficult schedule to navigate. I think that if you slip up and lose one game to LSU or Auburn or Mississippi State or whoever it may be, you're still sitting there at 11. I think that's easy money. The 10.5 for me, it's tough for Georgia because I can see Georgia slipping up. I can see them losing one game. They're replacing a ton of leadership. They're replacing a ton of talent. Now, what is Kirby Smart in the long run? Is he just reload like things have been in Tuscaloosa? I don't know. So I think it's hard for me to kind of gamble on that. I could see Georgia being 10-2. Now, I'm not going to go out there and say who's going to beat Georgia, get them 10-2. Could they slip up, though? I could definitely see them slipping up.
I don't think Georgia is going to be anywhere near as good as they were last year. I think they let a putt lip out as far as winning that national title, but I think they're still miles ahead of the rest of the East. The East is so far behind them that they just might not lose. You got Florida, you got South Carolina. South Carolina's the only one that I really think can get them. Georgia Tech's not going to get them. I think Georgia's 11-1. That's a pretty safe bet to me.
Yeah, I think what's tough too, and I'm not going to get the Georgia fans all riled up on this topic about who's going to be the two games. I just think that when you look at what Georgia is, when you look at the talent they're losing, and the fact that they're going to have the target on their back this year is an adjustment that they're going to have to make, and they're going to have to do that on the fly, finding new leadership on both sides of the football, having that target on your back when you're a team like Tennessee that has nothing to lose, or a team like Florida, or a team like South Carolina trying to get back at the top. Now, is the SEC East daunting? No way. Then you also add in the fact that you're going to Baton Rouge to play against LSU, and you have Auburn for the other crossover game. Can be a tough schedule.
Yeah, it's tough. It's not that easy, especially for an East schedule when you have Auburn there at the end. Somebody says, Nick Landry says this year's Georgia team is more talented than last year. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, no, it's not. They've got a lot of young talent with that #1 class, but freshman talent ain't the same as junior and senior talent, Mike. You know that. Freshman talent isn't the same. They're going to be just as talented as they were last year. This year, they will not be. They do not have a Roquan Smith. The running back situation is what it is. I just don't think they can possibly be as talented in 2018 as they were in 2017.
I think it's tough too, and I think if listen, if you look at the stars and take the average stars from all the players in the program, yeah, they're going to be a more talented football team. But I think when you talk about like I said, the leadership. Those two running backs, when you look at the linebackers, when you look at all the things that are going on, that's hard to replace. And I don't think it's as easily done as a lot of people think it is. Now, I say all that to say, listen, I'm not saying that Georgia's going to lose 3 football games. I think they're going to be very good, like you said. I just think that the schedule shapes up for it to be a pretty tough run for them.
Yeah, it does. It does. Let's get some other teams.
You mentioned South Carolina at 7. I think that's an easy one. I think they're going to get way over 7.
That seems drastically low for South Carolina.
There's a reason. There's a reason for me that it's low. I think that when Vegas looks at it and they set the over-under, I think they see what a lot of people don't. I think a lot of people look at it and say, listen, Will Muschamp's building and Jake Bentley's going to be a junior and Deebo Samuel's coming back. I think it's a flawed football team. And I don't think that Deebo Samuel and Jake Bentley and a new offensive coordinator, it's like we talked about yesterday. I don't think that overcomes some of the challenges that you've had for the last couple of years.
I do too. And I said that yesterday. I think they're flawed. I don't think they can take the next step. But 7? I mean, you're in a division with Tennessee and Vanderbilt and Kentucky, 3 awful football teams, and then you got 3 non-conference you're going to win. That's 6 right there. I didn't even mention Missouri. I didn't mention those teams. They could beat Florida. 7 just seems really low for South Carolina.
What about Auburn, though? Are they going to win at Alabama and at Georgia this season?
When I look at Auburn right now, I've got them losing week 1 against Washington. I just do, and obviously that's a point of contention between Auburn fans and myself. But I think that Auburn away from Jordan, they're going to have to prove it to me. And then when you add in the fact that both those games at the end of the year are on the road as well, you got LSU coming to Auburn. It's tough for me. It's tough for me to look at that Auburn football team and say that they're not going to win, 9 games or more. But there's always that chance to me with some of the inconsistency we've seen over the last few years.
I could really think about Auburn all day long as far as 9 games. Are they talented enough? They're the 3rd most talented team in the SEC probably. But what'd you say? At Alabama, that's a loss. At Georgia, that's a probable loss. Hey, I'm about to make a lot of friends with my Auburn fans. At Starkville, at Mississippi State, I am making a lot of friends. That's going to be tough. They've got a very tough schedule. And Washington, they could be a good team and go 8-4. That's how tough their schedule is. They got a really tough road.
And LSU, so Joe Burrow, the new quarterback, transfer quarterback, kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, but their schedule is brutal. And of course, like we just talked about, Ed Orgeron. Should we say more about LSU?
Yeah, we're going to. We're going to. It's 7. I think they're a 6-6 team, maybe 5-7. Now, Joe Burrow has lifted their ceiling to me because I thought quarterback was going to be a major problem. Quarterback was going to be a huge issue. Joe Burrow might make that not as big of an issue. We don't know that he is, but if he does step up and give him quarterback play, that lifts them up a little bit to maybe they're a 7-8 win team. I don't see much more than that.
I think that if Joe Burrow does come in and give them good quarterback play, I almost think that it's a little bit of a flawed facade in terms of what this LSU program is. Because how many times are we going to rely on the transfers coming in and saving LSU? It's 5 transfers that are going to play big roles in their team this year. Now, Joe Burrow, the ceiling might be incredibly high, but Will that tell me the story in the long run? I'm not sure.
But the difference with him is he has 2 years to play.
I agree.
Most grad transfers only have 1 year, so it's really kind of a Band-Aid on top of something. He has 2 years, and there aren't a whole lot of starting quarterbacks that start more than 2 years, so you're going to get just as much out of him as you would get out of a normal quarterback. So if he's good, it does make them a better football team.
Bo's giving me a tough time. All right, guys, we got to move along. I've got some quick news for you for topic number 4. Auburn's sophomore wide receiver Pace Ozmint was arrested over the weekend, charges of possession of alcohol as a minor and presenting a fake ID to a police officer. Oh, it makes me want to pull my hair out. Both of these are classified as misdemeanors in Alabama. The fake ID could see 3 months of jail time. I know this is not huge. He has not played for Auburn, but doesn't this cause some kind of off-season drama that coaches hate?
I don't think so. I think when you talk about this is almost like the filming, you know, the whole voyeur thing with the guy at Georgia. To me, it's just. Yeah. It's not going to be an issue to me. I think kids will be kids. They're going to be stupid at times. I'm not saying we sweep it under the rug, but I don't think this has anything to do with the football team that's going to work right now and the product they're going to put on the field there in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the bigger crime here is somebody naming him Pace. You got 9 months, you come up with Pace. But I just, you know, this guy, it isn't anything. You know, you get arrested for fake ID, you get arrested for this. You know, you get a group of 85, 100, whatever guys it is, stuff like this is going to happen. Not a big deal at all. I don't think this rises to the level of drama for Auburn.
We also want to remember college basketball icon C.M. Newton. He died yesterday at the age of 88. We just wanted to spend some time right here talking about an absolute legend. He played at Kentucky, where he eventually became the athletic director. He was on the 1951 national championship team with the Wildcats. He was head coach at Alabama for 12 seasons before coaching at Vanderbilt for 8 years. He touched many people's lives, and a lot of people reached out on Twitter, and we wanted to share these with you, including John Calipari. He said, an hour or so ago, C.M. Newton passed away. Please keep him and his family in your prayers. During one of the most trying times of our athletic department, he came to the rescue and put us on the path where we are today. May you rest in peace, my friend. Another tweet here from Jay Bylass, RIP to former Alabama and Vanderbilt coach and Naismith Hall of Famer C.M. Newton. Coach Newton was a great man that always had kind words for everyone. He made the game so much better. And a last one from us, from Paul Feinbaum. Very sad to hear of the passing of C.M. Newton, one of the most influential and iconic figures in the history of the SEC and one of the nicest and kindest individuals. What an incalculable loss it is. Very incalculable loss. You said that you remember him very vividly.
I do. I remember him coaching, and then he was talking to John Calipari, talking about when Kentucky was on probation. C.M. Newton came in as athletic director, cleaned up the mess, and got everything going in the right direction. C.M. Newton, you know, what the SEC is today, us doing SEC country and being all these spring up SEC, the SEC is a monster. It is an absolute beast of an enterprise. It's incredible. It dominates college sports in so many ways, and men like C.M. Newton are the reason why.
Yeah, this is a guy who coached 10 years, Alabama's basketball program. You hear a lot about him in terms of Alabama fans that remember what he was. Meant a lot to the game, meant a lot to the university, and obviously a lot of people are going to miss him.
We have an amazing champion of life coming up next, but our last topic for you today, we are going to update you on the baseball super regionals. 6 SEC teams have advanced, and we will show you the bracket. 2-seeded Vanderbilt will play 2-seeded Mississippi State, which was a great game yesterday, Brandon. 1-seeded Florida will play 2-seeded Auburn, and 1-seeded Arkansas will play 2-seeded South Carolina. So all SEC versus SEC. But 2 SEC teams, their seasons are over. They lost at their own regionals. That's Ole Miss, who lost to Tennessee Tech yesterday, and UGA lost to Duke. And I know that this guy to my right is just reveling in the fact that that Mississippi State's the only team in the state of Mississippi to still be in the postseason.
No, am I going to sit here and celebrate on SEC Country Live that Ole Miss choked at home to Tennessee Tech when they were number 4 national seed? No, I'm not going to celebrate the fact they choked at home when they were number 4 national seed. Listen, they were number 4 national seed and they choked at home. It happens. It happens when Mike Bianco is your coach, and you do it every single year. But I do want to credit our graphics guy who apparently made that graphic on MS Paint. That was an outstanding graphic that we put up there. I could almost actually read the words. But SEC baseball has dominated. SEC baseball continues to dominate. SEC will have 3 teams in the College World Series. It'll be either Arkansas, South Carolina, Mississippi State, or Vanderbilt, and Florida and Auburn. So whatever happens, the SEC is going to make up about half of the College World Series.
Our producers, Michael and Nate, just reminded me that you promised to buy the entire production staff dinner if Tennessee Tech won. So where are we going? And when?
So, Mike, did you have anything else to say about the College World Series?
I don't. I was going to congratulate Auburn pitcher Casey Mize for being drafted number one
overall.
That was awesome.
That is
good
incredible.
stuff right there.
Okay, guys, we end the show the same way each and every day, and that's with our champion of life. And this one comes from Mike Johnson. This was your not former teammate, but you guys went to the same school.
No,
this
is
bad.
Teammate.
We played together. Not only did we play together in Alabama, we played together in Atlanta as well.
Right, yeah.
So I highly regard Julio as being one of the best athletes I've ever laid my eyes on. I mean, it's absolutely incredible to see what this guy can do athletically, but this video here doesn't make him look very good.
Oh, boy.
That is Julio trying to play in a charity kickball
That's unfortunate.
game. And I'm not sure how this happens.
What's he doing?
I'm not sure how this happens that a man that is that talented, the hand-eye coordination, foot-eye coordination that Julio Jones has.
Is he drinking?
And he absolutely, I hope so, man. I hope so, because everybody asks me all the time, boy, who's the most athletic guy you ever played with, right? The answer is always Julio Jones. And it's videos like this that make me look absolutely terrible in terms of what he's bringing to the table.
He's 6'6", 220, and runs a 4.4 or something like that. Goes up over defensive backs every single game, and he can't kick a kickball. That was that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's the
Did you
opposite.
guys have kickball lessons at Alabama?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't think I could kick a ball. I just expected more from Julio, I guess.
Kevin Blackman says, Reich won. I can play kickball better than that. I was actually pretty good.
Were you good at kickball?
I played a couple years ago, yeah.
Fantastic.
We may or may not have won the kickball.
I'm very excited at the end of my second show to now be 2-0 against Mike Johnson. That's fantastic.
They've already been weighing in, man. You took the L again today.
No, my freeze died. My stream died, so I'm good.
I have no say in this fight, but I can promise you guys we will have another argument tomorrow, whatever it may be. That's Mike Johnson. That's Brandon Walker. We'll take this quick moment to tease your shows. Roll Tide Daily every day on the Alabama SEC Country page, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12:45 p.m. Eastern, 11:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Y'all,
11:45 p.m. will be at night. It's 11:45 a.m. Why do you continue to mess up my time?
I literally produced the show. I don't know. Just tune in to more cowbell on the Mississippi State Podcast. It's a blast. And I will be right back here tomorrow. We hope you join us then. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.